Is this week 9? It's week 9, right? We'll say yeah. Feels like week 9. Believe me? Consider the same. I know, have to do and do anyway, and then we have to do any other. Yeah, no, there's no. I just have a lot of overlapping students right now.
Heather and I, did I give you the wrong one?
No.
No, the stack of papers I just handed you.
Oh, no. Yeah, the first one is mine.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
So, Ari and Anaya, definitely look through both of your stacks. Because Professor Demasi gave me a huge salad by storing these for me. But he's already messed up by the top. So just take a quick look to make sure it's correct.
To be fair, there's some close.
I think they're just spelled really similarly enough that he's doing it really quickly. Yes. Cities. Okay. I think that's everything. So, nice job on your presentations. It's a lot. It's like 3 weeks in a row of listening to student presentations for sure. We might have another one next week just as a makeup. But this week we have a visitor coming from the Career Center to talk to you about how to find jobs after graduation, how to write a cover letter, how to set up a LinkedIn profile that's catchy and is going to get the attention of, what is likely AI looking for things, how to get your resume looking catchy and interesting to AI, which is also really how more places are using AI more and more to search through cover letters, search through resumes. I don't love it, but that's the reality of the situation. So she's coming today to, Jordan Hunt is coming today from the Career Center to tell you a little bit about the services they provide, but to also lead you through like an exercise on how to look for these types of things, how to look for jobs and how to improve your resume. The other thing, and then I'm gonna kind of kick that off by just giving you some pieces of advice that I had for you about getting ready for the next step. So this is week 9, there's 14 weeks in the semester and 1 finals week. So what's that, 6 weeks left? And like my favorite part about communications for 4th year students being on a Friday afternoon or morning or a Friday afternoon, which is the other section is Friday afternoon, is that very often I am the last person you see in your undergraduate career, right? Because this is the last class. Does anyone have class after this? Staff? So, I'm so upset. Maybe like come to my office hours after that class and I'll make sure.
Until what time?
Huh?
What was it? Until what time?
So like if you, usually my comm class is 11 to 2 o'clock, and that's usually the last class that students have as an undergraduate. But if you've got class after this one.
Right after? No, I have class at 12:30.
Boo. All right, well, I'll find you and be like, no, I was the last person to use it as your time as an undergrad. I just get really excited about that. I used to also read the names at graduation, and they took that away from all of the program directors. So rest assured that there are a few of us who are out there yelling enough that we're hoping we could get that back, but I don't know. They don't really care about us all that much. Anyway, so that's exciting because on the last day of class is the public brochure presentation, and it's very casual. I usually like bring some snacks for people. If other people want to bring snacks for other people, that's also fun too. So it's very relaxed and very fun on the last day of class, and we're getting there, right? We have 6 weeks left. So I will see you 6 more times if this is the only class that I have you in. So I wanted to give you a couple of reminders as well that the final posters for printing are due Tuesday. So that felt fast, especially if you are in the 3rd group of presenters. That feels like, oh my God, that's like really soon. Like, yeah, that's next Tuesday. And the reason why I need the final posters submitted then is because it takes the copy center some time to turn over that many posters. And between this section and the afternoon, I have 40 students who need to print posters. Plus the CRD conference is approaching as well. And so we have to get in with enough time. You submitted to me your poster draft, but also remember, all I was looking for that was color scheme, size, and that was it, right? Really, just like where, in general, we're gonna put some things. So even though you don't have grades for that on Blackboard, I checked everybody before you left to make sure you had the right size and you had the right color. So you can go ahead and start populating that draft. If you changed your color, please let me know by the end of today, like what color scheme you did choose. Only because like I'm not gonna micromanage the colors that you want on your poster. That's completely fine, whatever you wanna choose. It's just that I've done this long enough to know that some colors print rough. So it's just like, you know, the whole like a pink background and lime green text, like that's a rough combination. On a poster, like on a computer screen, sometimes they look okay, but on a poster it can sometimes be tricky. So if you're looking at me like, I have no idea what you're talking about, please make sure you talk to me before the end of class today so I can make sure that you're on the right track to get your poster submitted to me by Tuesday of next week. There's a Blackboard link for that. Please submit it as a PDF, because if you submit it as a PowerPoint or any other type of file, like a Canva file or something, sometimes when the copy center opens them up, the formatting gets all shifted and weird. So please submit it as a PDF. That's the only way to preserve the formatting. The other thing is these are going to be printed well before the poster presentation, which is not next week, but I believe the following week. So if you want to see your poster printed out before then to make sure that it's correct, come to me during my office hours or shoot me an email and I'll arrange a time for you to come and look at your poster to make sure everything is exactly how you expected it. And if it's not, we can resubmit for printing. So that's why I'm having it due early, is that if there's errors, and sometimes there are, like things just get shifted around, or the color is like, oh no, that looks really horrible, I can resubmit it for printing. Because you're submitting them to me and I will submit everyone's posters, you don't have to worry about like finding the copy center like link and like convincing them that it is allowed for you. You're allowed to submit these posters, right? Because I'm gonna submit everything, it's just easier that way. You don't have to deal with the copy center. I can do that. Any questions about the poster submission? Don't overthink it. I have some people in my office like, okay, I'm trying to figure out what I want to put on my poster. Do I just do the same figures I used in my talk? That's a really good place to start, right? Like you've already told a story. That's why we have you do that first, with the beginning, middle, and end. And you've already selected the figures you feel are the most important to include in your talk. Start there. If you can put all of those figures on your poster and you feel like you have a lot of space, then you can maybe add some more things. But if you feel like you're using the things you'd used in your presentation and you've already taken up all the space, that's it. You're just telling the same story. Remember that you have to write an abstract, so a new abstract. So you can't just use the abstract that's in your paper, you have to create a new one. And that there's resources under the poster presentation details to help you write that abstract. If you want to run it by me, that's fine too. Send it to me in an email. Abstracts are really easy for me to run through because they're small, they're short. So I can review it if you want to make sure, like, is this right? Does this sound okay? I can take a look at it for you before you put on your poster. The other couple of reminders, these two things you have to do before the end of the semester. So the reason why I have you connect with me on LinkedIn is because I have all of the communication students over the last probably 5 years connecting with me on LinkedIn. So if you connect with me, you will join my network of other bio majors from MCPHS that have jobs and are off doing things. So that expands your network and allows you to connect with other alum that have already gone through this process of looking for a job and landing a job. So you can kind of see what other people are up to and make connections that way. So connect with me on LinkedIn. That's part of your grade for the career readiness exercise, is just connect with me on LinkedIn. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, now is the time to make one. Because you're about to graduate. For most of you, you're about to graduate. So it's a good idea to have a LinkedIn profile. A lot of recruiters will look at LinkedIn profiles as a way to find people to place you in jobs. So that's how Brian found his first job, was through a recruiting, somebody reached out to him and said, hey, you have all the qualifications for this type of job. You should apply for this job. And I was like, oh, okay. And so he did that. So it's a useful tool in your toolbox, is to join LinkedIn and connect with me for sure. And then you have a cover letter exercise. So we'll kind of start that today with when Jordan Hunt comes in half an hour, but you have to finish it before the end of the semester. That's it. So all it is you have to find a job that you were qualified for today with the qualifications that you have. And so for most of you, if you're fourth years, that is, I'm about to get a bachelor's in biology. So bachelor's levels positions. Not like, oh, if I had a master's degree, I could apply for this job. No, no, no. I want you to find a job that you are qualified for today, and I want you to send me the job description, your current resume, if you need to zhuzh it up a little bit and update it, yes, please do that, and a cover letter that you would use to apply for that job. And then if you're looking at that scenario and you're like, wait a minute, maybe I also should just apply for this job, you should do that, right? Go ahead and do that. So just to get you ready, get you thinking about the next step in finding work after graduation, which is important to me. I really do support my students. You know, it's rare if somebody comes to me and says, can you be a reference for me, or can you be a letter? And I'm like, absolutely not. That is a rare occurrence, because I know you guys pretty well. You've taken most of my classes, if not all of my classes. And I've had you in small classroom settings and large classroom settings. I've had you in biochem and genetics where you're like taking tests and going through content. That's called a didactic course. I've had you in this course where you're speaking about research, you're writing about research, you're doing poster presentations. So I can say a lot about you guys. That's why I always am like, yeah, absolutely, I can be a reference for you. So just let me know what you need and I will support what you need. I really do want to make sure that you didn't just go through all 4 years of college and you're leaving, you know, with nothing. I want you to have something, right? I want you to be able to move on to that next step. I think I already gave you all your stuff back, right? Okay. You're absent on my list right now, so like remind me that like, hey, I'm here, can you please? Okay. All right. Oh, the other thing is I owe you a couple of grades. So you all submitted your paper, that's fine. I submitted all of the oral presentation grades, those are current. The oral part of the oral presentation is current as of this date. I owe you like 5 points for your poster draft, so that'll just be me like, yep, absolutely, just going through and giving everybody 5 as long as you submitted something on time. And then the other thing I owe you is the remaining 5 points from your oral presentation that are your slides. So working on it, I gotta get through the rest of my genetics exam first, plus I'm also moving, right? So I've been moving the last like week and a half. So I'm on it, I promise you. If your numbers look like, if you've got a symbol on Blackboard that looks angry and red, can you let me know so I can make sure to update that so it's not just like totally stressing you out? A lot of people were emailing me about 2 weeks ago, like, why do I suddenly have an F in this class? And it's because I had to post the round 1 presentation grades. And so when I do that, it releases the grades for everybody. So like everybody else went to an automatic 0 because I posted the grades for the first round. That should be fixed now because I just finished posting everything for this round and it should all look normal. If something looks weird, let me know. But the grades in this class are odd because they start to pile up more towards middle end of the semester as you start to, you know, present things and turn things in. So if you're concerned about something, just let me know and I'll walk you through it and make you feel better because nobody is doing poorly in this class. Okay. All right, so I'll set the stage a little bit for Jordan Hunt, who's again coming in about 25 minutes for job preparedness. So how do you get ready for the next step? For those of you, why is this? I did notice that Dr. Demasi did not move that off the screen when you guys are presenting. That drove me, I saw it down here and then up there. I was like, why? Just move that out of the way. Also, I don't know what kind of party was being thrown outside this door, but it was so loud for some of you. I'm so sorry if that was horribly distracting. It was like towards the end of the morning and then the afternoon, it was just like, I just heard people screaming, like, you know, like in a happy, like, oh my God, it's you, like screaming at each other in the hallway. It was like insane. So I know that it gets warm in here, but that's why we keep the door closed because it does get loud out there. Anyway, so if some of you recognize this, it's because you had me in ITM. So I like this kind of like brings it all back around, right? So I see Nicole, you nodding your head because I remember having you in ITM. Some of you who didn't have me in ITM is because you switched into major. So this might be the first time you're seeing this. But I do like to bring this back around because during ITM, I have to, you know, make it a good point to be like, you are employable for many different types of roles with a degree in biology. And now as you're sort of 6 weeks from the end of your academic career here, I want to remind you the types of jobs that you can apply for now that you are about to get this degree. So probably the more common ones that I see people applying for are R&D and biotechnician. So those are the 2 roles that you're most qualified for, especially if you have a couple of lab skills, you've taken some lab-based courses. And these are the ones where you can do R&D with a bachelor's degree, just depends on the type of R&D being done. So if it's more like quality control or entry-level type, there are entry-level research and development jobs. I know because my younger brother is also in biology, and he went to Emmanuel, and he got a bachelor's in biochemistry. I probably influenced that a little bit, actually. He is like my little clone. Like, he just basically does everything that I do, which is like adorable. But anyway, so he has a job in research and development at different biotech companies in Boston. So he's worked at 3 different biotech companies in Boston. By the way, if you want to know more information about, hey, how did you like get that job? Or do you just want to kind of bounce ideas off of my brother? He really likes talking to my students. So if you want to connect with him, let me know and I will set that up. I'll just be like, my students want to talk to you, and he'll be like, where? Like, let me know the email address, we'll do a Zoom. But he's in the city, he lives in Somerville, and so he works around in the Somerville area. And then biotechnician, this is the one that I'm usually placing students in. They're common at hospitals, they're common at universities, and they're common at companies, just companies in Boston. And there's no shortage of those types of positions, for sure, especially for entry-level positions. They get a little trickier at the PhD level because you're more specialized as a PhD, so you have to find like that specialization that you're looking for. That job has to be available. That's good news for you guys. So there's more jobs available for more entry-level positions. And again, I think like the thing I say is like you can't throw a rock and not hit a hospital in this town. Same is true for a biotech company. They're hard to miss. They're everywhere, all over the place. And then there's a couple of others. I do have people coming to me often and say things like, you know, I really like patients, but I don't want to be a doctor because I really like research, but I don't love being in the lab. Like, who am I? What do I do with my life? And the answer to that question is very often genetic counseling. So it still gives you an opportunity to interact with patients, and you get to interpret genetic information and genetic data. So you're not like doing the sequencing reactions, but you are interpreting that data and explaining it to somebody else, which is essentially this class, right? Like I am describing the research to people who understand research, and then I will work on describing research and information, scientific information, to people who don't have that kind of background. So genetic counselor is a great choice. I don't think you can do this with a bachelor's degree, but there is a really good master's program in genetic counseling at Mass General. I think it's like a year or maybe 2 years, but it's a short program where it's a master's in genetic counseling, teaches you how to like talk science to non-scientists, and how to interpret genetic data. And that's more and more important these days as more and more people are sequencing their genomes. And that is interesting because most people cannot understand that information. So when they see something like, oh my God, I have Alzheimer's. It's like, no, you have a predisposition to Alzheimer's. Like, what does that mean? Am I gonna get Alzheimer's? Like, well, no. So like they need help interpreting and understanding that information, especially when it comes to cancer risks and things like that. But there's like a whole host of other things. I actually write a good amount of letters for people applying to law school. And they're interested in patent law, so like they have a degree in science, they go to law school, they get their law degree, and then they help scientists patent their work, their intellectual property. And because they have an understanding of the science, that makes them really employable with both of those types of backgrounds. Yeah. And then of course, healthcare is always an option for people with bio degrees. Just a couple of showcases. So some of the things that you can do at the bachelor's level are research assistants and research technicians. By the way, this is my husband who was a little shaggier back in the day, although he's still pretty shaggy looking, it's just longer and man bunned these days. He is also a really good resource for you. He's at the like the senior scientist level, so he's definitely further along in his career than you guys are, which is why I usually suggest you have a conversation with my brother, who has the same degree but has 5 years experience. So he's a bachelor's degree with 5 years experience. Brian has a master's degree with, hold on, I'm just doing some quick age math, 20 years of experience. Yeah, 20, maybe 15 years experience. So he's essentially functioning at a PhD level position with a master's degree and lots of experience. So he can give you some advice about like, do I do master's or PhD if you're thinking about graduate school? I can also give you that advice, but my perspective is very different. I've never worked in industry. I've never had to. This is my job, right? I'm an educator. I have a wide network of people who work in those positions, and all of my friends who went to graduate school are in industry, so they made great choices with their life because they're working at industry jobs and making a lot more money than I am, but that's okay. But that means my network is really wide. So just let me know if you want to talk to people doing like bioinformatics types jobs. I have a bestie who works in bioinformatics in the Bay Area in California. Brian is a fermentation microbiologist and biological engineer. So if you want to learn more about that kind of role and how he ended up there, because that was not what his degree was. His degree was microbiology, but he's a biological engineer now. And so how did he do that? I want to know more about that. Let me know who you want to talk to, and I will put you in touch. This is actually Tamara Alexanyan. She is a bio major at Mass College of Pharmacy, and she ended up working with Brian as an intern over the summer. That used to be something I was like, oh, he usually like hires from like pool of students. This company is not doing all that well, so there's probably no internships happening this summer. I'm a little nervous actually. This company is like, I don't know, they keep letting people go, and it's like, Brian, like brush up that resume there, pal. Anyway, so research assistants and research technicians usually have a bachelor's degree, usually helping other research teams with their common procedures. So Tamara started here. She worked at Indigo for I think a year, because after her internship ended, she was offered full-time employment. And that's pretty common. It's not always a guarantee, but it is pretty common, especially if you do a good job and the company is doing well. And she was doing like the same 4 assays over and over again. She got really good at them, like freeze drying, mass spec, flow cytometry. So she was getting really good at these really marketable skills. But then she went to graduate school and she just finished her PhD at Tufts University. So working in industry with your bachelor's degree for a couple of years is a good way to make you competitive for graduate school, because it shows that you care about the field, you're remaining in the field, and you've got a little bit more experience. And since you're coming back to school, you're doing that with much more intention than somebody who's just going to graduate school at the end of bachelor's because they don't want to pay their student loans right away, which is what I did, by the way. I was like, yeah, sign me up. I don't want to pay my student loans. I'll go to grad school. Sounds great. Not the greatest way to get into graduate school. I struggled for the first 2 years because I did not know why I was there. More on that struggle later. People at the scientist level, you need an advanced degree for that. So a master's with experience, and it's like at least 10 years experience if you want to get a PhD level position like Brian did, and then or a PhD right out the door, you can just get that position right away. Albeit you have to spend more time in school and more money on your brain to get that PhD. And you have to publish and like prove something when you get your PhD. There's not as much emphasis on that with a master's. Okay. Other things you can do with a bio degree is a research assistant in healthcare. So this is Leanne. She's also a bio major from MCPHS, and she worked for the nonprofit organization UNICEF and did a lot of work in sub-Saharan Africa and lots of countries in sub-Saharan Africa. And I believe it was vaccine promotion. So just trying to encourage people to get the new malaria vaccine. So that was like a huge breakthrough. The newer malaria vaccine is like fairly effective. And so she went there and was helping with that outreach. Some type of clinical type jobs that bio majors are qualified for that I often place people in. And when I say place, I mean like support. You go, you apply, and then I'm your reference, and I help you find these things. Research or clinical research coordinator and clinical research director, although that's not for you guys. That's with like a master's degree. You can be a clinical research director. Clinical research coordinator is absolutely a bachelor's level position. That is a super common job, especially in Boston because there are so many hospitals. A lot of them are hospital-based jobs. I can think of, let's see, like Eric, Miji, what was her name? I can't remember her name. Ashley, they all went into clinical research coordination jobs. So for that, what you're really doing is you're helping you meet with patients in clinical trials, you collect samples, information, like survey information, and then you're managing all of that data by inputting it into the appropriate database systems, communicating with the PIs, running the trial. It's a really good job for people who are interested in going to medical school later on. So it's not like a long-term job. They're usually like 1 to 2 years. But it's a good way to get patient interaction and again, prove to medical schools that you are interested in things like research and inquiry, and also you're like dedicated to the field. So that's not like look for job titles that are clinical research coordinators. Our graduates are really qualified for those jobs. Okay. And then there's research technicians in academia. So what's the difference between a research technician in industry versus academia? The number one thing is pay. You'll definitely get paid more working as a research technician in industry. How old is Caleb? 29. So five-ish years ago, when he started his job as a research technician at Join Bio, I think I started him at like $60K for his salary. When Brian with a master's degree started as a research technician at Harvard School of Public Health, it was 42. So like you'll make more money as a research technician in industry for sure, but let me just real quick give you a reason why you should maybe consider the academic job. Is if you're thinking about graduate school, that is a pretty good idea, is to take up a technician job at a university, because you get to know other graduate students and because you're working in a lab with postdocs, PhD students, master students, and other undergrads, and you got your hands on everybody's project. So you can learn a crazy amount of skills in a very short amount of time. Because the way technicians work in academic labs is, I mean, like you're usually the only technician in that lab and you're getting paid, and that PI is like, I need to make every single dollar that I'm paying you count. And so you're doing flow cytometry for this person, you're helping plate, in dilutions and platings with this person, you're helping somebody else with their immunohistochemistry work, you're helping other people in like an animal facility. So you just get like a ton of experience and a ton of skills in a very short amount of time. That's actually the first job Brian had, was as a research technician at Harvard School of Public Health. And then that recruiter I told you about helped him get his next job, which was in industry. So because he's like, I can't stay at this job forever. Does not pay very well. And we lived in this town, like with a Boston address. And we were like, I was postdoc. So I was like, I'm done, I'm stuck. Postdoc salaries are set by the NIH. So the NIH is that National Institutes of Health. So that means a postdoc in Boston is making the same money as a postdoc in like Nebraska. So they don't consider things like cost of living. So my pay as a postdoc was like shockingly low, but I was on my way to like wanting to get an academic position, like a teaching academic position. So it was a necessary middle step between PhD and that job. So I had no choice. Brian was like, I'll work at this academic job, because he really enjoyed it, and I'll tell you why. But then he moved to industry because his pay went up so much, just making that switch to industry. So he had a master's degree working as a technician. You can do that as a bachelor's too. My brother did the same type of job when he first finished his degree. And he was working in a tuberculosis lab, which means he was their BL3 technician. So do you guys know the biosafety level thing? Like 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 is like your teaching labs. 2 is like my stuff with cholera. So like, be a little more careful, essentially, is what BL2 is. There's a cure, but like you don't want this illness. BL3 is, there's a cure, but it's not that great, and you definitely don't want this illness. That's tuberculosis. So he was doing mouse experiments with tuberculosis, and so he had to go to the BL3 facility and like to shave his beard, so his respirator would always fit his face, like skin to mask. And then he had like a huge one over his head and a full bodysuit, a hose out the back, and like a filter attached to his hip, because he's in like a full-on alien suit going into this BL3. And when he would go in there, he'd have to go from a culture, like a liquid culture of tuberculosis, to an aerosol form, because that's how you get tuberculosis, which means he's standing in a room. Now there's a hood in there where he's like trying to infect mice with tuberculosis. But that means there's tuberculosis in the air around him, right? And exactly the format that makes you get tuberculosis. So because he was the only technician allowed in that room, so like if there was a grad student who was like, I want to run a mouse experiment, Brian would be like, tell me what to do. Because not everybody was allowed in there, because it requires very special training and a lot of special care. That role got him his job in industry. The reason why, they're like, the reason we hired you is because we knew you were responsible, you were dependable, because you're doing scary stuff and you're doing it well and your references were really good. So again, those academic jobs, albeit not the best pay, you get to do cooler stuff. You get to do a wider range of stuff. And sometimes you get to do something so outside what you would normally be able to allow to do at an industry job that it gets you a better job later on. So consider them, especially if you're thinking graduate school. Not a bad idea. Oh, this is Kinza Hussein. She's now a DO in Maine, so she went to medical school after she worked with me at Mass General. And then this is Ashley Najiru. She worked at the Harvard Medical School, both of them bio majors from MCPHS. I think she actually is in the PhD program at Harvard right now. She took like 3 years before she decided to go back to graduate school. This is just a nice list of other things that other people have done, and I know because everybody connects with me on LinkedIn, so this list kind of gets updated and changed over the years, but you'll see a lot of like research assistant, molecular technologist, technician, research assistant. But then you have health systems implementation specialist. So that is somebody who helps people select diagnostic machinery and materials for hospitals. Operations engineer, so this is a DNA synthesis operations engineer. It's a fancy title for they were running the sequencing machines all the time. Director of sales at Novogene, so that's not a biology-based position, but because they have biology knowledge, they're better equipped to sell biological stuff. So like materials, reagents, machinery, and things like that. So because they know what they're talking about, right? They understand the language and they can communicate that with people buying these types of things at labs. But yeah, mostly you're gonna see research assistants and technicians, clinical research associate, right? That's your clinical research coordinator job in healthcare, flow cytometry technician, senior research technician. These are all different things that MCPHS students are currently doing. Okay, so you might have noticed that like a lot of those jobs require higher ed, higher ed. So like master's and PhD type level jobs. So you might be asking yourself, like, what do I do? Do I get a master's or a PhD? And I'll be real with you, this question was easier to answer before last year. So last year, there was like a bit of a shakeup in funding for scientific research. And that means graduate schools who had already accepted students into their programs were retroactively rejecting students from their programs. So that was heartbreaking to watch, where it was like, I got in, and then I got that same email from that student that said, they just kicked me out of the program and I haven't even started yet. And it's because a bunch of labs in the country lost their funding. There was like huge cuts made to the NIH and the NSF, so that's the National Institutes of Health and the National Science Foundation, and those are the two major granting bodies in the government. The good news is the Howard Hughes Medical Institute and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation are also two really good funders, and they're private funders. They're not funded, they're not like government funds. So not all hope was lost, like there's still people putting money into science, but graduate school is far more competitive this year and last year than it has been previously. However, people not getting into PhD programs are getting into master's programs because you have to pay for them. So PhD programs are often very funded by the university. So like, we'll pay your tuition if you teach our labs. And that was the gig that I got up at the University of New Hampshire, which is where I went to school. When I started there, they were like, you teach the bio labs and you don't have to pay tuition and we'll give you a living wage. No, it wasn't. It was it was like $10,000 for the year, for the whole year. So that was, I still had to take out money to like eat food and put gas in my car because I was going to school in New Hampshire. There was no public transportation up there. So I still had to take out some money to fund my ability to survive and live. But I didn't have to pay tuition, and it also got me into teaching, and I love this job. This is the best job ever. And so if I hadn't had that opportunity, I would never have known how much I enjoy teaching. So it worked out for me in the end, but that's more reserved for PhD level stuff. So that used to be for master's and PhD because there was ample funding, but now it's really just for PhDs. That does mean people are getting into master's programs more, and more research labs are looking to put master's students in their lab, and then if they get that degree and prove themselves, there's often opportunities to stay on and get your PhD in that same lab. I know this because last year, one of the best students I've ever had was rejected from every PhD program she was applied to, and I was like, this is insane. Like, I can't believe you're not getting in. Of all the people, I never would have guessed that. But it's because she was applying to graduate schools like in January, and that's when everybody lost their funding. So the good news was there were master's programs still open, and every master's program she applied to, she got. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I think it's just, there's not a lot of funding for PhDs, so it's really competitive. But because you have to pay your tuition for a master's program, people are getting into master's programs. She started working there over the summer, And by December, they offered her a position in the PhD program. So now she's in the PhD program working towards her PhD. So she didn't even have to be there a full year, and she was offered an opportunity to get her PhD. So I would say, don't let it scare you from applying. Apply. PhD programs are often due before master's programs are, but have a backup plan at all times. Also be looking at different master's programs to see if you can get in, because I have it on good authority that at least one person in this room recently got into a master's program. So that's pretty exciting. So it is possible. Whether or not you decide to continue going to get your PhD or you stick with a master's, really depends on what you want to do. If you are the type of student who doesn't have the most competitive GPA, but you really want to get a master's degree so you can get a better job or get more skills, a non-thesis-based master's is usually a good option because they're not as competitive with like the GPA thing. And a non-thesis-based master's is going to put you in more classes, give you more like tangible skills. And I had a student who came to me totally lost. She was working at a sequencing company all last year. She graduated last year. And she's like, this company is sketchy and I need to get out of this situation. I was like, oh, okay. Like, have you considered, she's like, I'm thinking grad school, but my GPA is not that great. And I said, oh, you should consider like a non-thesis-based master's. Good news, she got into 2 of those programs and she accepted one at UNH. So she's up there right now. And because she was one of my research students, she texts me she has my number because I have to know when my research students are in the lab so they don't burn the place down and all that stuff, or if they need my help. And she'll text me pictures of her in the lab. Like, look at me, I'm holding a mouse. Like, look at these cool pictures I took today. And she's just learning like a million skills with this program. And part of that program, they look for biotech companies in the area to place you in internships in companies in the area. So your non-thesis-based masters are not a bad idea if you're not like super competitive on the GPA scale. If you are more competitive, a thesis-based master's will get you a bit of a better paying job if you go that route. And really, like, should you get a master's? Well, the types of jobs that you'll be doing is like, you won't be doing the same assay every day or being told what to do every day. You've got a little bit more say about what you're doing. You might even be given an opportunity, if it's a small company, to lead your own team. Like, after you've proven yourself a little bit, make a few more decisions. But if you're the type of person who, like, you really don't want to bring your work home with you every day, you want to go to work and do your job, and then that's it, you leave the job there and you come home, master's, then you want to get a master's degree. If you want to lead a team, you want to make a little bit more money, you want to call the shots, you want to make the decisions about what the team is doing and what direction the research is going, you want to be involved in the executive level decision-making process, that's a PhD level job. If you want to be an educator in college, PhD, you need your PhD for that. So if you want to do what I do, you need a PhD for that. Very rarely will you see a professor here as a master's. And if they do, they were here for like a really long time, proving themselves that they are a good teacher, and then they were granted that opportunity for promotion. But usually you need a PhD for that. And like, really think hard about that choice, because I love my job and it works for me. But if you are the type of person who does not want to bring your work home with you, this is not the job that you want. I bring my work everywhere with me, every day except Saturday. Saturday is mine. That's why you'll never get an email from me on a Saturday. I will never grade a thing on a Saturday. That's my day. And I took that back after graduate school. Graduate school, you're in the lab all the time. You're never not in the lab, working really hard. It takes 5 to 7 years to get a PhD. Working your absolute butt off and taking very minimal time off and very minimal vacations, making no money, teaching in the meantime, taking classes in the meantime. So, I mean, like, when I graduated, I was like, you know, I recognize that I'll probably be working like this a lot, and like, good thing I'm a workaholic because that works for me. Not on Saturday. I'm taking my Saturdays back. So, it is important to set boundaries. I also don't answer emails between when I arrive home and when my kids go to bed, because they deserve my attention as much as you guys do, right? So my work is never done. I just decide to be done for the day. That's usually how it works. Master's is a little bit easier. It's like 2 to 3 years for the thesis-based masters. A lot of the non-thesis-based masters are like a year long, like year and a half. They're really short. So you can get a lot of skills in a short amount of time. It's like almost like getting that technician job as a bachelor's. For graduate programs, you're usually applying the December before the year you want to attend. So it's not like medical school, you have to apply like in your 3rd year, you apply in your 4th year. So if you are a fourth year right now, there are a few master's programs that still have not lapsed on their application deadlines, but after April 1st, it's really hard to find stuff. So you might just wait till the next cycle. Next cycle for programs starts like November, December, but most of them are December, January for deadlines. So if that's the case and you're graduating, you have to start thinking about like, who's gonna write me a letter and have conversations with those professors now, because the next time you ask them, it's not gonna be for another like 4 months that you have a conversation with them. But it's all done online these days. And again, every program has their own application like requirements and like, but they're mostly the same. You could usually use the same materials across programs. Except for the letters for some reason. There's no like central hub like there is for medical school. I have to write, like if you apply to 15 schools, I have to write 15 different headers and yeah, keep track of them all. But usually you're applying again like end of the fall, beginning of the winter semester before you want to go. And then what's daily life like as a graduate student? It depends on the program. PhD, you're just in the lab. Or you're teaching labs. And then you're back in the lab, you take a quick break to go eat, you move in the lab, and then you go back to the lab, and you're running experiments. If you're a microbiologist like me, there's always like that rite of passage growth curve that they make you do, even though I feel like it's hazing. Like it doesn't feel like necessary, but they'll make you do like a growth curve. So I was there overnight, waking up every hour, and like taking a sample and then going back to sleep in my cube. And then like, so grad school life is an intense experience, but one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. So it's hard. Like the one thing that I think I really dislike hearing is like, oh, if I don't get into medical school, I'll just like go get a PhD. Like, oh, will you? Because it's actually pretty hard to get a PhD. Because at med school, at least you know what to expect every day. Like it's kind of laid out for you. But your PhD is really depending on how good your experimental design is. If you can actually collect data, you're dedicated enough to do that every day. Publishing a paper is no easy feat. And then defending all of your work multiple times, doing seminars. Med school is hard, so is grad school, so is getting your PhD. So like don't enter it lightly, just like, oh, I'll just go like get a PhD. Like you will have a hard time if you go into that, not really knowing what you want to do with it on the other end. So do it with intention. All right, so our guest is here from the Career Center to talk. I'm gonna pause my thoughts there. I do have a Zoom recording going. Since it is Eid, there's a lot of students who aren't here, which is totally fine, but I'm recording it so that they can look at it later. Because they're fun, they like really wanted to hear your talk today. I do have some Career Center slides already loaded up, so I don't know, oh, you can't see that. So I just have them on my Blackboard page if you want to use them, but if you've got something else, that's also fine.
I'm just gonna grab them from my email.
Oh yeah, wonderful. I don't think I'm signed into email or anything like that. Completely. If you have any questions about like, hey, I want to talk to some people in your network about how to do that, or I want to talk to you more about grad school and what that life is like, you know where I am. Just ask me, and I will absolutely help you with all of that stuff. Oh, I have to.
This must be logged in when we log out. Yeah, undo that.
Jordan, I'm gonna run to my office really quick, but I'll be right back.
So when I, for the recording, it's showing on this screen,
It's
so I
showing
pull
on
it
this
over
one,
there.
yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
Be right back, everyone.
Sorry guys, it keeps loading her email, not mine. That's good. finally. Like log her out like 4 times. She just really wanted to stay in here. So hopefully everybody can hear me. If you can't, I guess somehow pop up in the chat. So welcome, I'm Jordan Hunt from the Career Development Center. My office is literally right beneath us. And I know I've seen some of you guys. So this is going to be extremely fast. I mean, there's a ton of slides, but I'm not going to talk about all the details on each of them. You can just look at it more on your own. And I'm assuming that you've kind of seen some of this before, so we don't need to go into super details, but just in case, I wanted to leave it on the slide anyway. So literally covering everything I know about career readiness today. Okay, so the resume, obviously, it's not just a list of tasks that you did and anyone in that role would have to do at that job. It's demonstrating your strengths, your transferable skills, your approach, your awareness, your attitude, your fit for the employer. And it's got to be easy to read and clean, error-free. You know, it's basically a writing sample. So you're going to make sure that it's hitting the standard expectations. You know, this isn't a graphic design school resume. This is simple, you know, get the point across resume or cover, what do you call it? Curriculum vitae, CV, which is probably going to include extra categories potentially, which I'll show you in another slide. But one thing about the applicant tracking system, AI, that's probably going to end up seeing your resume at some point, is that if you keep it simple and optimized for human eyes, including, you know, using keywords that the human is expecting to see, it will also be optimized for the AI eyes. But what you can do to throw it off, which would be bad, is including lots of crazy stuff like text boxes, logos, images, icons, you know, weird fonts, footers, headers, like just stay away from that. And then hopefully the AI won't pull it into the database in an incorrect way. So you're probably gonna have some of these categories on your resume or CV. Sometimes they use the term interchangeably. If it says CV, then go ahead and go towards the CV style, which is probably going to include your publications, presentations, conferences, things like that. But the resume is probably going to be a little more tailored to the job. And so you need to be careful not to just list everything you've ever done if they're specifically asking for a resume. So this is like a simple format. We do have these templates on our Blackboard page and also on our new website. And so here, you know, we're starting off with education because that's kind of the most important thing in your life going on right now. And then you could put in something like research experience. You can put in other work experience. You can put in academic projects if those are really relevant to the job. But whatever you do, you know, remember that people are probably going to be looking at the first third and just looking to see, can I put them in the probably pile or the let's move on to the next step pile? So if you put the most important things at the bottom, like buried on the second page, that's going to be a problem for you. So keep it easy to scan, you know, clear headers, be consistent. You know, this is bold or this is capitalized, this should be capitalized, right? You've got 2 for February, but here you've got the whole word September. Don't be inconsistent. Be consistent. So then when you're writing the bullets, as I said, you have to demonstrate details about yourself. Be specific, paint a picture. Allow me to visualize how you did something. Allow me to engage emotionally with your bullet and to connect the dots about how those things that you did and those skills that you applied are going to be relevant to this next job. So again, how you did it, how well you did it, why you did it, the effectiveness and the outcome. And then of course your transferable skills is a lot about how you did it, right? So in this example, we're going to use the STAR method to help you get all those details in there. Situation, task, action, result. So here we have, you use the tell, show, do method to guide chemistry 2Ts through proper cell culture procedures, 100% improved performance on weekly demonstration tests. So you've got who you're dealing with, the situation is the 2 T's, the task is, for any 2T is to teach, but the action, which is how you did something, your approach is using this particular method, and then the result is that people improve their performance. So you have shown me that you're effective because you've demonstrated an actual approach to the thing. You have a strategy, you have an awareness of how good tutoring works. So it's, and you're aware of, results being important when it comes to tutoring. In some cases on your bullets, all you need to do is throw in some adverbs like proactively did something, consistently did it, accurately, fully, politely. Think of the words when you're reading a job description. Well, don't just think of them, read the job description, highlight the keywords, and make sure that you're using those same words, and think about what's important to that employer. Is following protocol important? Is accurate documentation? Is regular communication? So if it's communication, now can you say the word regularly communicate or consistently communicate? So now I'm getting a sense of that you know what's important and that you have done it well in the past. You also need to use more verbs than just provided, helped, assisted. Those are too boring, too general. I don't know what they mean. You need to give some more clarity to me by using strong verbs. And then if you can quantify, what's been going on, the scope of your challenge that you faced, how many experiments, how many people you worked with, how many, things like that is important. Not all the time, but oftentimes it gives me a sense of why I should be impressed. So here's some action verbs. We have lots of lists on our website. You can Google these things. And then, there are way more transferable skills that you could show, but I'm sure that you can probably show all of these somehow. The resume should be a good snapshot of, you as a professional, not just the same skill over and over again, but a variety of skills, right? So they can teach you multiple different techniques and things, but they don't want to have to teach you to pay attention to detail or to come with a strong work ethic, right? So in some cases, if you had a job, maybe it's something like this where it's not a lab job, for example, but still you have skills and growth and some achievement to show, right? So I don't necessarily need you to write a bullet that says they served coffee. I need you to write something more than that, like that you were promoted based on accuracy, that you were consistently outperforming the goals, that you improved the customer service, that you were recognized for your ability to be adaptable, and in this case, instantly and cheerfully adaptable, right? So these are some positive words that I'm now associating with you with, and you have to be specific, and you have to put those words in these people's minds. It's up to you. Here's some examples of kind of going from too vague to more detailed and more effective. So for example, if you, let's see, the second one, volunteered to help youth in need, what does that mean? Okay, so it means you specifically offered programs and activities that enabled participants to develop leadership skills, network with peers, and experience personal growth. So now I believe you more, that you're a good volunteer just versus a mediocre volunteer or a robot volunteer. Now I have more information to be happy about in terms of you and this resume, right? So you have to say how, you have to give details, how well. Asking yourself these questions, did I increase efficiency? Did I coach or empower, build trust, pilot, evaluate, discover, take advantage of something, recommend, implement, improve, prioritize, do something consistently. All of that's valid stuff to be showing on your resume, and thinking about what the job wants you to show, and then finding a place on your resume to demonstrate those skills and demonstrate that effectiveness. Excuse me. You can do it with the outcome or the accomplishment first in the sentence, followed by, like in this bottom part, accomplish this by doing that. Or you can flip it around and say, did this in order to achieve that. There's lots of different structures for this, it's fine, whatever you use, but the point is that if you're not able to give this resume to your grandma and she can write in the margins here, oh yeah, that's a good example of creativity, I see teamwork, I see critical thinking, then you probably need to go back to the drawing board and do this again. So this was an internship that we recently posted, and I went through and just highlighted a bunch of keywords. And the reason I have vibes at the top too is because I have seen resumes where somebody came along with like some real good technical industry experience as a like product manager, a manager for like product development and sales and stuff. And then they were trying to get into something that's really human interaction intensive. And I'm sure they could do the job. There was like reporting, data collection, things like that. But she really didn't have the other keywords that seemed to be important to this job, to this employer in her resume, in terms of treating people respectfully, being flexible, taking initiative, having teamwork. From her resume, she seemed very kind of in the background, technical, clinical, like there was really no human element to it, and that did not match the vibe of the employer or the job description when you looked at the website. And so that is a thing. You have to understand that you have to rewrite your bullets to demonstrate that you did work with a team on this project, a product development, and that you did go and interview community members to understand what they needed in order to improve the software interface. Like you have to put the humans in there if this job is a human, intensive job. So you have to understand the vibe of the company. So, and then of course you need to read carefully the instructions. Do they need this by a certain time? Do you need to be available for an interview during a certain week? Like just read thoroughly, right? So AI can help you, and I'm sure you've heard this many times in your classes. It's a double-edged sword. You have to be careful that your resume doesn't end up sounding like a robot and representing you incorrectly and preventing you from doing the thought work that's actually going to help you with the cover letter, help you with the interview, help you in general, talk about yourself. But like you could use some of these prompts, for example, asking for it to analyze areas of strengths and weaknesses. Strong and weak skill alignment. You could ask it to make sure not to assume anything when it's looking at your resume and the job description and kind of point out things that maybe you missed. You can ask it to help you add detail to the bullets in terms of how well, why, and the impact. You can make sure that it's that you're catching the keywords. So you can use it, but just like I said, do your brainstorming. Like, what are you proud of yourself for? What do other people appreciate you for? What did you do in terms of your awareness, your approach, your attitude? What did you apply to that task to make it go well? And after you have that written down, then start asking AI for help. But you have to know yourself. You have to analyze, like, what strengths you have, right? And then the writing about them you can get some help with that. So when I asked AI to help me as a career advisor, it asked me some of these questions, which I know are too small for you guys to read. But for example, it was asking me to put some details in, like how many students do you counsel on average? What specific tools do you use in counseling? How did you make the workshops interactive? What kind of feedback were you getting? What kind of measurable outcomes are you seeing? How did you collaborate with faculty? What was the participation rate in the workshops? Did you lead people to improve their use of certain typical platforms in career advising? How did you market your workshops? What are you proud of? How did you build relationships? What kind of dedication and creativity can you demonstrate? So it asked me some good questions, and then I added some bullets, revised my bullets to be more demonstrative of the typical things as a career advisor that an employer would, like if I were trying to find a different career advising job, that employer would want to see. And I'm not going to read all this, but AI can be biased, give you inaccurate information. You have to protect yourself, do not take off your personal information. Take off your name, your address, all those things. Be careful. And then personalize whatever comes out and proofread it and get feedback from humans as well. So anyway, some tips, reminders. All right, so cover letters, similarly, you need to be specific, but it's a business letter format thing where you expand on a few stories about how well you've done certain things that are relevant to the employer. So it's going to be connecting, what they need to the skills and experiences that you have. And so it should be in, we'll see an example, but it should be in kind of the same font and style as your resumes, and should be proofread, submitted as a PDF. Certain things listed here are the requirements. Don't make it more than a page. So this is the format, their information, your information, the date, their information, and then dear hiring manager, or if you can actually find the hiring manager's name, and then these 3 or 4 paragraphs, which I'll go into detail on. So in the first paragraph, why are you writing, which job is it, what job number is it, where did you find it, and then use to say, I think my skills in this and my background of 5 years at this job will help me do great in moving your research forward to, in some way. And that's like a connecting sentence to the next paragraphs that you're going to talk about, where you tell a story about those skills that you mentioned. And then you close it up with, I'm drawn to working at your company for XYZ reason. My resume is attached for further information on my qualifications. Please contact me for an interview. Here's my email and my phone number. Thank you for your time. And so it's pretty formulaic, but it is really another chance for you to kind of put it all together, connect the dots in their mind about why this makes sense for you and for them. So you have to be specific. So in this one, for example, if you guys look for the key skills that are being conveyed, you would find empathy, personalized approach, and then so then basically in an example of her empathy and personalized approach, she explains to children that the rubber dam is like a raincoat for teeth, and that she lets them get prepared for the noise level by showing them this handpiece in advance. And so then she repeats her skills, taking time to build rapport, educate, empathize, which results in smooth clinical patient management and improved oral health. So then rounding it out, kind of keeping their mind on what's important here, is that she can bring those skills of tailored interpersonal approaches to their clinic. So it's like this person clearly knows how to work with children, has certain strategies, and can apply them to that employer as well. So that's like one of the paragraphs, an example of certain skills that are relevant to that employer. I will not read this whole thing, but these are just, you could take this and kind of fill in the blanks and have a pretty good cover letter. You can also use AI for some assistance, but like I said, make sure you understand what a cover letter is supposed to be before you start using AI, and make sure that you understand what's really important, the top skills for this employer, and you tell examples of when you use them. So in this case, you could say, identify the biggest challenge for someone in this job, and then indicate which of my qualifications and experiences can be emphasized to show that I can take on that challenge. So you can ask the AI if you're doing it right. Yeah.
Is it necessary to put your signature in your cover letter?
As in the handwritten signature?
Yeah.
No. You can just type it, that's fine. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not going to read that, but it's another reminder about AI. So in LinkedIn, this is a big part of your job search, right? Making sure that your LinkedIn is kind of consistent with what's on with your resume, that it's up to date, that you're active on it, that it doesn't look like you haven't paid attention to this thing in 5 years. So updated picture, shoulders up, professional looking, well lit, good smile, not cropped out of some group picture with your friends. And then in the background, picking something that makes sense for you. So if it's some lab equipment or I don't know what, but not, don't just leave it gray. That would be sad. All right, and then the headline is the space right underneath your name where you get to put some keywords in there that the algorithm's going to pull and help you get connected to other people that are important to you and that employers you might want, So, like for example, Mackenzie put pre-med student, women's health and business minor, future pediatric surgeon, passionate about precision, problem solving, advocating. So it might be a little long, but you'll find that you can be a little bit creative here. But because people are going to be scanning this, the algorithm's going to be scanning this, employers are going to be scanning it and trying to find a reason to click further. Right? So then you have the about section, which is kind of like an elevator pitch, kind of like the answer to tell me about yourself in an interview. But it's essentially that, how did you get into this? What are you doing now to develop these important skills? What are some of your strengths? And where do you want to go with it? So it's, it can be creative. It can be more creative than your cover letter. This is kind of the most creative place to be. But don't get crazy. I mean, this is not like Snapchat. This is, So these are some suggestions on kind of starting sentences that you might have in different sections. Time flies when I'm working on this. I've been commended for that, and then currently I'm seeking blah, blah, blah. Okay. Here's an example, and it doesn't have to be you don't have to go to these lengths, but you can put some flavor of you, because I'm sure there's a specific reason why you got into this major and what your hopes and dreams are. I mean, allow that to come forth and motivate people and inspire people to connect with you. So in this first one, for example, the person is talking about having climbed Mount Everest and thinking about quitting, but despite everything, kept going. And so they say, once I do say I'll do something, it will happen. That's this person's main strength. And they're saying, now I put that perseverance to work as a senior account manager for Polar. I don't climb any mountains, but I do have to move them. I'm well-versed in negotiations, planning, development, relationship management, etc. And if you're interested in grabbing coffee and talking about how I almost fell off the mountain at 27,000 feet, or talking about, just talking shop as in industry stuff, please contact me. So it's kind of an invitation to encourage people to reach out and have a chat, right? So again, this person is kind of hooking you by talking about something they're proud of. They're proud of their level of perseverance, and it does help them in a professional way. So you could kind of go with that direction if you wanted. There's lots of other sections. This LinkedIn is of course the place to put your resume to an even more dynamic level, right? So you have pictures of your poster presentations, all sorts of additional things you could put on there: honors, awards, test scores, causes, publications, volunteer experience, projects, courses, licenses, all the things. And then you have the skills part, where again, the algorithm is going to pick up on at least the first 3 and try to connect you with other people who have similar skills. So make sure that you are figuring out what are the top skills in your industry, and then listing that you also have those, right? And moving them, dragging and dropping them to the top, and then connecting them to where you got those skills from. Did you get it from your time at Dunkin' Donuts? Did you get it from your time at this research lab? Where did those skills come from? Joining groups is a really good way to network. you should definitely join our group, which is the MCPHS Career Development Center. You know, we have weekly jobs, internships, volunteer things being posted every week, and you can get into the members section and connect with all the members for free. LinkedIn does limit you based on how much you're paying them, so you can get around that by joining groups and connecting with people through the groups. You can find alumni when you go to like our school page and you go to the alumni button, or you can go to the company page that you're interested in, go to the people button, and try to see who studied at MCHS, who's working specifically on this type of topic. You can put in keywords and you can find people, and then you can reach out and connect with them and maybe have an informational interview. You know, the more that you talk and build relationships, the more likely it is that you're gonna be able to find jobs. It truly is about that hidden job market. Staying active, like I said, you know, mentioning when you have done something that you're proud of, congratulating other people on when they did something that they're proud of, talking about interesting articles that you've read. You know, that's one good way if you're trying to engage a company, maybe starting to post or to respond to some of what they've been posting, using the @mention option. And then of course it's a job search tool. So you've got filters, you've got, you can save things, have alerts. It will show you people that you should be connected to at that job. It actually has a lot of functionality that you should explore. So there was a LinkedIn presentation last night, and pretty sure it was recorded. So look for that. We'll be publishing that somewhere, probably on our Blackboard soon, and it was very helpful. So you can put a little banner across your face talking about being open to work. Some people think that's a good idea, some people don't. But you know, you'll be able to identify what kind of things you're open to so that recruiters can see you. When you're making a bunch of changes, I recommend turning off your visibility for a little bit so that not every change is like pushed out to everyone. It gets kind of, you don't want to have that overload of that they ultimately don't pay attention to the new you. So I have here a couple more tips on networking and job search. Just talk to everyone. Your friends, let people know what you're looking for. Be clear about what you're looking for. You know, let your friends, neighbors, faculty advisors, you know, people in clubs, church, you know, at work, well, at your part-time job, hopefully, let them know that you're interested and say, do you know anybody who works in this field? Do you know, have you ever heard of this? Do you have any tips on where I could look? Just ask. You know? Finding events, conferences, going to those obviously, joining professional associations, following what's up with them, checking their career pages, asking, like I said, for informational interviews to understand what someone has been through. We have an example, like outreach message at that link there on our new website. You do have to be professional though. This is the thing. Like if you don't think it's professional enough, get someone to look at it, because you don't want to tank your entire effort by not writing a sentence professionally enough, right? So in your job search plan, it's going to be imperative that you stay organized, and I know you guys are probably really good at this. Some people get overwhelmed, and it is overwhelming, but making sure that you're setting up a dedicated time to do this, you're tracking what you found, you're saving the job description, because inevitably it will come down probably before you have the interview, and then when you're preparing for the interview, you're like, oh my gosh, where's the job description? Copy paste it into a Word doc, save it somewhere. Making sure your social media is locked down to strangers, making sure there's no red flags that the public is able to view there. So if they're seeing some wild partying and that's not the vibe you want to be giving to the employer, then you should clear that up. Because we do, like, trust me, I've been in a lot of hiring situations, and we totally creep on the social media and LinkedIn of people, so. If you don't feel ready to do to do an elevator pitch at a conference, come and talk to us. Make sure you know, like, what is a scammy kind of job. Like, if the job's asking for, like, any real personal information, social security, asking for you to, if they're approaching you and you're like, how did they get my number? That's probably potentially a scam. If they're asking for any sort of actual financial contribution before you can go further, that's definitely a scam. You just Google, like, what to look out for when in scam job position scams, you'll find all of it. Have your references ready to go. I'll show you a page on that. Obviously have your documents ready to go, and if you're an international student, make sure that you're in touch with immigration and international support services. So here's like an example references page. Don't ask the person the night before the interview if they can be included on your references page. Give them some time, let them understand what the job is about, give them a copy of your most recent resume and cover letter and the job description. Maybe they won't get called the next day, but if they feel like you just slapped their name down on the page and didn't ask permission and kind of came out of nowhere, like surprised them and rushed them, it's going to turn out badly for you. So you're going to have their name and contact information and how you know them. So that line there is like, Tim was a fellow project manager at whatever. So-and-so was my supervisor, for 1 year. So this is the format. We have this on our Blackboard and in our website as well. So it should not be friends and family. It's the #1 rule. So in terms of staying organized, you can make yourself a spreadsheet. There's a lot of tools out there. Some of them are free, some of them aren't. Career Shift is one of the tools that you could use to stay organized with your job search, where you can save, like, oh, I used this version of my resume for this company, save it in the folder. I have to follow up in 2 weeks if I don't hear from them. There's ways to mark things on calendars. You could just use a simple spreadsheet like the little example at the bottom, but making sure that you're taking this as if it was a project for a group project for your something. You can't let yourself down. So you, yourself, and I, those are all your team members, and you don't let them down in terms of like dropping the ball somewhere, right? So here's some examples of where you could find some jobs. I know that the Center for Research and Discovery sent out a big list of internships. So those are internships, I realize, but they might be at companies that you actually want to target. So you're just looking for names of companies that you might check out. That could be one place. There are often, Blackboard announcements about jobs. There's definitely our database here called CareerLink. You should get signed up for it and set up your alerts. Like I said, join the LinkedIn page. Join our organizations and associations. Follow them on LinkedIn. Even on Substack, they have some different newsletters published about where to find jobs. And then, of course, your typical search engines here. And then some more specific ones for you guys. MassBio, you've all heard of it, no doubt. And, you're currently able to be a member because our school is a member. The Mass Life Sciences Center rally for finding research, clinical trials, finding the principal investigators, just digging into what's going on out there so you can start networking. Federal government job search and has internships and jobs. Biopharma thing, website, BuzzFile if you just want to search for like all the medical labs in the greater, Cambridge area. You can find them. Career One Stop has like a state job bank link there. And then there's specifically a page about Massachusetts healthcare jobs. So I'm sure there's way more than this, but start there, see how it goes. And again, if you're an international student, make sure that you're using this too. Or if you're somebody, a non-international student who wants to like work in France, you can also use InterStride to find the international jobs. Okay, interviewing, everybody's most fun topic. I'm not going to show you this video because I want to show you a different video, but it is very funny if you end up wanting to see a funny video. So, all the things. Don't be late, don't have your phone on, don't immediately ask about salary, make sure you send a thank you note at the end, make sure that you've done your homework on research the organization enough to describe or be able to predict the kind of questions that they're going to ask you. I mean, obviously AI and Google can help you with this too, but identifying your weaknesses so you can reframe them as strengths, knowing the transferable skills that they're looking for, really writing out an answer so that you can get the words out and be concise and not ramble, making sure that you have good specific examples for tell me about a time when, and then obviously never say anything bad about other employees or coworkers, and don't speak badly about yourself. Make sure that if you have to talk about a mistake or a weakness that you're actually including how you revised that situation, and now it's unlikely to happen again because you've done some remediation on it. If it's a Zoom interview, obviously make sure that you're not sitting in a swivel chair like distracting the heck out of the person as you're swinging back and forth. No disruptions are going to walk through the background. Make sure you're clear on how you come across. Are you fidgeting? Are you tapping your toe? What's going on? Are you having good enough eye contact, good enough projection? You need to practice this, and you have to see how you're actually looking. So we have some tools for you to record yourself and see how it's going. If you're in doubt about what kind of outfit is required for the interview, you can ask the interviewer. I want to be clear, is it business casual? What are you expecting? Will there be a tour where I need to be using certain shoes? Just want to make sure I'm wearing the appropriate attire. You can also ask us, obviously. You can take a picture of your outfit. We can give you some feedback. But yeah, you get the gist, right? So there's all sorts of interviews, right? Some of them are going to request that you, hopefully you won't have too many where you're just talking to a computer screen and nobody's on the other side. Those are really disheartening and horrible, but they do sometimes happen. And then in some cases, they'd be giving you like a case study to work on, where you maybe have to disclose that you've used AI in certain ways. In some cases, they might be, having another round where you submit additional examples of your work. Just making sure that whatever you're submitting, it's yours, or you've gotten permission from whoever you were working with to be able to,
So I also have been hearing at least 3 times now that some lab-based positions will have you do a practical. So, but they'll tell you what it is beforehand, and it's not like a super long thing. But I had a student who was one of my research students say they want me to set up a restriction digest reaction when I come in. Can you review with me how to do that? I was like, absolutely. So go to your lab instructors, go to professors. They have to tell you in advance what they're gonna quiz you on. But yeah, she had to go in there, and she said when I got there, the pipettes were all there, all the possible choices were there, and she had to set up a restriction digest as part of her interview. So that's happening more and more.
Yeah, and I was helping somebody who had to do a PowerPoint about themselves, and what was the other piece? Yeah, I don't remember really, but I think there were a couple PowerPoints, but one of them was about themselves. And so it's not just like, well, I grew up here and I like flowers and blah, blah, blah. You need to take, I mean, you can say that. I mean, they were actually asking some sort of personal things like, what are some of your hobbies or whatever. And so she had to address the question, right? But you need to try to reveal a strength and skill that will be applicable to the job. So it can't just be like, yeah, and here's some pictures from my top, bucket list, travel bucket list, which was like part of the question, like, where would you like to travel? Tie it back to the job, because I've always been interested in environmental causes. I mean, I don't know if there was something about the job that was kind of environmentally related. Anyway, if in doubt, come have us review your presentation. So you could get asked traditional questions such as these. The tell me about yourself one is difficult. I have a little video on it. And then you could get asked, obviously, why do you want to work here is a big one. Make sure you're not just like, well, yeah, I just care about working on cancer and you're a well-known cancer researcher. That's not good enough. There's many people doing research on cancer. Why this company? Dig in a little bit more. You're going to have to find reasons. And then the behavioral-based questions, of course, which is tell me about a time when something had to, and then they're looking for you to demonstrate these skills. So here's I'll show you a video. Let's see.
Describe a time when you made a mistake. What did you learn from that experience? That's a behavioral.
Do you happen to know if the thing's optimized for videos or no?
I don't know what that means.
If they can hear the sound from the
Oh,
video?
we can hear it.
No, on the Zoom.
Oh, I don't know. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, guys, if you can't hear this, you'll have to watch it later because they're fun. You'll enjoy it. It's like a game show.
We could hear, on other Zoom, we can hear
Oh,
stuff in the hallway, so
okay.
I think they can hear it.
Perfect. Okay.
Interview question. But what's the best way to answer? Welcome to the interview game by Indeed, where we show you how and how not to answer interview questions. The hiring manager is dialing in. Hi, Bill. I understand you need to hire a new bartender.
I sure do. I run a bar downtown, and I need someone who's experienced and a real problem solver.
Got it. So I'll ask some behavioral-based questions. Then I can see how each candidate's past experience relates to the role you're hiring for. Strong answers should follow the STAR format. Candidates, are you ready? Jessica, you're up first. Tell us about a time when you made a mistake and what you learned from it.
In my last job, I was responsible for processing returns. One customer ordered the same outfit in a bunch of different sizes. She kept one and returned the rest, but I credited too much money back into her account. My manager was pretty frustrated. The whole situation really turned me off from working in online sales, which is one of the reasons I want to work here.
Thanks, Jessica. Next, we have Carlos.
Look, I bartended 7 years. I really don't make mistakes anymore. I mean, I did way back when I was younger. I bumped up a few kegs. I fell for a couple of counterfeit 20s, but that's ancient history. Look, if I'm your new bartender, you can be confident that you're going to have a professional back there, someone who's seen it all, who doesn't make mistakes.
Thank you, Carlos. Hi, Sandra. You're up.
Well, one of my first catering jobs, I uncorked all the wine before we started serving, but then most people drink beer. It was an expensive mistake. So before the next party, I asked if I could shout at my boss as she set up. And I made a checklist so I would know what tasks to do in the right order. I still use that task list. It probably would apply here.
Thank you, Sandra. Jessica shared an honest mistake. But then what? Her answer fell flat because she didn't share what she learned. Carlos named 2 mistakes, but then he dismissed that. Maybe he could have shared how he mastered correctly tapping a keg or spying a fake 20. That would have been more effective. I thought Sandra's answer was great. She quickly explained the mistake but spent most of her response talking about the steps she took to overcome it. She even connected what she learned to this new role. Next up.
Okay. So you can see like the scoring system. They have different scoring system for the other videos. That's a little more appropriate to the type of question it is, but I think this is helpful to kind of see the level of detail you would need. But you can also see just some of this body language is bad. You know, Sandra gave a great answer, and then afterwards she's kind of like looking kind of weird, like making weird faces, and I'm like, what are you doing? So just, you need to stay in character the whole time, right? So these videos I find really useful, and there's different, like I said, kind of scoring methods. Like if you're asked, tell me about yourself, make sure you're putting a little bit of personal detail in, professional detail, staying positive all the time, and making it fairly short, pithy is the way. So check them out, and of course, come to us for practice. Here's just a quick quiz. Which one do you guys think, which one of these are appropriate? Or maybe easier, which one is not appropriate?
I think so D is appropriate.
Okay, you think it's not appropriate?
It is appropriate.
Oh, it is appropriate, okay. That is correct, that's the only one that's appropriate. The other
I was like, oh, those are rough. We don't ask those questions.
Yeah. So most hiring managers know not to ask you these questions, but if you bring it up and you're like, yeah, I took my kids to school this morning and that's what, then it's on the table. So don't bring it up unless you want it to be potentially talked about. But it's those things are not relevant to your ability to do the job except for D. So make sure that, if somebody's asking you and you think it's not right, just try to redirect and say, I'm confident that I have all the skills and my life is set up so that I can fully dedicate my energy and focus to this job, Okay, so again, I'm not gonna read all these because we don't have time, but there's all sorts of questions and you don't have to prepare for hundreds of them, but you do need to think about the kind of main categories. Give me an example of a strength, give me an example of your teamwork, of your communication, of being, working independently, all the kind of major ones, right? And then just why you're interested, where do you see yourself going? Just most of these questions are kind of related to each other, they're just formulated slightly differently. But you should definitely have a good list of questions for the interviewer at the end. And keep it positive. So, what are you most proud of regarding your team's work? What are the goals of the organization that you're most excited about this coming year or something? So you can, if they haven't given you all the details that you need about the job itself and a typical day, okay, ask those questions, but they probably will, so now you can have an arsenal of additional ones to have more of a chat and a time to get to know them better and maybe reiterate some of your strengths. So we have a big interview. Have any of you guys used it? Okay. It's getting better and better, as you know, AI is. It gives you more and more feedback, and you can send that to your friend or me or someone to get feedback on your video recording, but it also has example answers. It'll actually, in some cases, revise your answer and tell you stating it this way would be better. And then again, we're available for mock interviews. The main thing here at the end of your interview is send a thank you note immediately. And then check us out. We have our new website here, Career Development Center on the web. A lot of it's similar to our Blackboard stuff. We're kind of like, we migrated from the Blackboard to the regular website, and eventually we'll be getting rid of some of the things off of Blackboard, but some of the school specific, like major specific things will be still on Blackboard. And then of course, we have events on Cardinal Pride Portal. We have appointments through Success Hub, and LinkedIn is putting up, we have some of our events and opportunities there too. All right. And drop-in hours on Thursdays.
So for the thank you note, like, doesn't it look like a little bit redundant because, you have to be like, you have to say thank you and also a reason why you are thankful. So,
Sorry, I'm not sure I understood the question.
so the reason of why you had the interview is to get a job.
Yeah.
And after that, you're sending them thank you note. You should have a good reason to say thank you.
Well, it's basically just thanking them for their time
Oh,
and perhaps saying something like, I enjoyed learning about how cohesive your team is, or how, something that shows that you're interested in them, that there's reasons why you're interested in them, that you've discovered that they're very committed to something that's important to you, right? This was fascinating when you said this, and it really makes me even more excited about working for a company that does it like this. And in some cases, maybe there was something you forgot to say or something that you still have a question about. That could be something you put in there. But overall, it's short and just, thank you for your time. I really enjoyed chatting with you. Especially the discussion on this was really interesting to me and makes me more excited to work for you. And I think my strengths in this seem to align well, and I look forward to the next step. Please contact me with any additional questions. That's it. Yeah. Good question. Any other questions, guys? You feel like you had the whirlwind tour of everything that you're up against now?
Are these slides similar to the ones that you used last year? Because those are posted to the job preparedness folder on Blackboard. So there's so much good stuff in here, but I recognize that it's a lot.
Yeah.
So feel free to peruse any of those slides because all of this information is already accessible to you.
Yeah.
I would download it and save it just so you can go back to it later once the Blackboard course closes at the end of the semester. It's not a bad idea to have that.
And I can always email you guys these things. I think the links to some of the job search sites might not be in the previous ones, but
Okay,
yeah. So thank you for your time. All right, good luck to you.
Thank you very much for coming.
Just leave this up here for later.
Great. So we are at the end of class. So again, don't forget to reach out to me if you want to connect with some members of my network, or you want some advice about graduate schools and things like that for, mostly if it's graduate schools, we'll be planning for next semester or next year. So when you apply the next round, because we are pretty late into March, there's not a whole lot of applications still available. There are a couple, but not a ton. And then let me know if you want access to any of the links that she has.